Welcome to Oyate Today. Oyate in Lakota means people. Regional Health is a proud sponsor of Oyate Today. We believe in helping communities live well. Hi, welcome to Oyate Today. I am your host, Richie Richards. Oyate Today is produced by Tim and Jackie Gallego. Tim is an enrolled member of the Oglala Sioux tribe. Our guests tonight are Greg Hunter and Marnie Herrman, both of Security First Bank. Thank you both for being here tonight. And sir, if you could talk to us a little bit about, because I know that Security First is celebrating their 20th anniversary of the Badlands Express mobile bank. So could you talk to us a little bit about that, sir?
Sure, Richie. Security First Bank, which was Stockman's National Bank, started in Rushville, Nebraska in 1898. And then specifically as it relates to the Badlands Express, Tim started a newspaper called the Lakota Times back in the middle 1980s. In fact, we were involved in the financing that project for him. And in about 1992, Tim sent a journalist around to the border towns to talk about financing on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation as well as the Rosebud Indian Reservation. And one of the things that came out of that interview with the banks in those 5 towns was, how do you lend on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation? And the discovery that came through that effort was through an interview with the bank in Martin, Black Pipe State Bank, led to a circulation of that article that Tim had written, both circulating back in DC and locally with the Bureau of Indian Affairs and the Department of Justice, was a follow-up referral from the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Indian Affairs to talk about some effort or some issue related to discriminatory practices, lending practices. So the Department of Justice sent out 2 young attorneys from Washington, D.C. In late 1993. And they then subsequently filed a lawsuit against Black Pipe State Bank, which led to Stockman's National Bank acquiring Black Pipe State Bank in 1994. So Tim really opened the doors for then what was to become the Badlands Express, which rolled out in 1998. Through that investigation, one of the things that became evident was there had to be a better way that we could probably service the reservation. Because up to that point, through the 80s, I started the bank in 1976, a lot of individuals who banked with us didn't have transportation to get to Rushville. So they would usually catch rides with friends or acquaintances. And one of the things that they charged, maybe it was a fair price. It didn't appear to be. In some cases, people who were getting loans of $1,000 were paying $50 to $100 for a ride. And because the round trips from Kyle and Wombly were 90 to 120 miles or more round trip. So in 1998, when we decided that the board decided it was time to better serve that reservation, we decided the Badlands Express was the best way to do that. We cut down transportation costs. It allowed us to better service the reservation. And we were able to go to some of the schools who had a larger employment base than some of the others. And we could bring services to those places where we could then also deliver services to the employees of those schools. So the result was we could better serve residents of the reservation. We could also then provide services to some of the schools who had a large employment base. So it was sort of a win-win for everybody.
Sure.
But whether Tim realizes or not, it was through that article that really opened the door because of branch banking laws back in the late 1880s and 1980s and 1990s.
So it was through those unfair practices then that kind of led to the need for this program then?
A little bit, because branch banking laws you could not just decide to go into South Dakota and have a mobile branch. State banking laws were restrictive, and so the only way that happened was when we acquired Black Pipe State Bank in 1994, we had to convert that from a state bank to a national bank. And because the Comptroller of the Currency, the OCC, which is the Department of the U.S. Treasury, authorized us to actually define an area, and defining the area allowed us to actually then implement the mobile branch.
Sure.
The Comptroller of the Currency said, if you will define the trade territory, we will allow you to do that, which preempted South Dakota's Department of Banking.
Mm-hmm. And so, Marnie, with this Badlands Express in its 20th year now,
Yeah.
where does this mobile banking system travel to on the reservation? It's only in Pine Ridge, then, on the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, correct?
Right.
Okay.
So today we go to Kyle, Wanblee, Manderson, and Pine Ridge. We, for the first several years, also went to Oglala, but we decided fairly recently to just trim down to the 4 communities, just mostly because of customer traffic and everything, and that's worked out okay. But we're on our 3rd vehicle. We just rolled out Badlands Express 3 a few months ago.
Nice.
Because as you can imagine, out on the road 5 days a week puts lots of miles under the tires, and but we're on a set schedule in each of those communities every single week. And really the only thing that interrupts that is weather, and particularly in the wintertime, of course. There's days where it's just not safe to go out, but
Yeah.
we let everybody know we can't make it today, but
So how many tribal residents are being serviced then? How many people are we affecting with this program then?
It's hard to get an exact count, but we know that we see several hundred people a week.
Wow,
So in some weeks are busier than others, but not everybody needs to come to the bank every single week, but there are hundreds and hundreds of people who are served.
And where can somebody find information about this program and in their community so that they can take part in this? How do they get a
Well,
hold of that
one of the
information?
easiest ways is probably just to use a search engine, Google, and say Badlands Express, Security First Bank, or something like that. Or if they're already customers, it's easy for them to just go to securityfirstbank.com. But I would just use a search term. And we do have in any of our we call them brick and mortar locations. So in Martin, Rushville, Rapid City, or any of our other 25 locations, we have schedule cards. A lot of people like to keep those in their wallets, like
Sure.
what day are they going to be in Pine Ridge and what time, and so they're business card size schedule cards that explain when the bank's going to be in town.
Okay, cool. And as far as the communities that are being served, I mean, it's a huge convenience for these tribal citizens. Do you have any feedback from say, one of your clients or customers?
Well, we get a lot of great feedback, and in fact, when we rolled out the new vehicle here just a few months ago, there was a lot of relief, I'll say, because there was some debate. Well, okay, we know that other vehicle is kind of getting old, and is the bank going to keep, still doing this? And a lot of the folks, particularly as Greg was referencing with the schools, I think the group in Kyle, and I won't think of a specific person's name, but they were particularly happy, and they even helped us out with a photo shoot as we were photographing
Nice.
the bank, and big smiles too, just because it's so much more convenient. Yeah.
And so you have a great relationship with Tim Gallego, and you helped him start Lakota Times
Correct.
back in the 80s. And so how was your relationship with Tim over the years? I mean, I know Tim speaks highly of you. I visited with him the other day about you, but how was your relationship with Tim, and what does that mean for you as that person that helped to start not only the Lakota Times, but Indian Country Today, now not unto Native Sun News Today, and so you've really helped to grow this kind of, media empire of some sort, and that in itself, you had a large role in creating this media outlet in our area, and so I don't know what that means for yourself, but it means a lot to our community. So,
Sure. I thought about a little bit of that driving over here. One of the things I think that Tim was more, he was energized. And I think a dream turned into something that was real for him. And goals, I think, are sort of overstated in a lot of cases. I think that they evolve through dreams and ambition, and Tim had that, both the dream and the ambition to follow through. And to what little degree we played a part, and I had an opportunity to continue to work with Tim through the years, because once he launched, he was on the course and he was ready to keep pushing ahead. So even though a little bit of the beginning was, how do we start this process? I don't take much credit in that. Tim deserves all the credit for the effort to push it out and really beyond just that initial loan to him back in the 1980s. And so he deserves a lot of credit for that.
You both are two modest and humble human beings because he gives you all the credit and you gave him all the credit. So we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about Security First, and we'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
It was after his third open heart surgery. Brady started crying and grabbing at his chest. We agreed to call 911 right away. And by the time we got him out to our vehicle, he was completely limp.
He was slumped in Mom's arms, got some oxygen on him right away, and he started to come around.
We were pretty scared that we might have to relocate. Buffalo Regional really wanted us to stay here and not have to move to a bigger city.
They've proven to us that they'll be here for Brady.
Our school has great students and dedicated teachers, but we need our community volunteers to help us to provide a broader view of the many ways a good education can point to a bright future.
Did someone say volunteer? Our team at Black Hills is here to help. In fact, we sponsor events and projects, and our employees volunteer for organizations throughout the Black Hills, including partnering with schools to help students learn more about life outside the classroom. Extracurricular, extra fun.
You can't predict life's ups and downs. You just give it all you've got to stay on top. But it's easier with a partner like Security First Bank. Since 1898, we've been riding with you through the country's biggest ups and downs. And this is where we'll stay. Security First Bank, a relationship you can count on. Member FDIC.
Native Sun News has been voted the best weekly newspaper in its class for 2015 by the South Dakota and North Dakota Newspaper Associations. You can find a copy of the Native Sun News at many businesses and vending machines in Rapid City and the surrounding area, and on all 9 reservations. We publish every Wednesday, so advertisers and subscribers can reach our diverse readership by calling 605-721-1266. The Native Sun News covers the other side of the story.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guests tonight are Greg Hunter and Marnie Herrman, both of Security First Bank. Great discussion. I thank you both for being here once again. Sir, you had mentioned that, well, there was a victim relief fund set up in 1993. Could you talk to us a little bit about that and kind of how that came to be and the results of that, please?
Sure. At the conclusion of the article that Tim had written on lending practices on the reservations, and that article circulated back through the Department of Justice and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and ultimately back to DOJ. That would have been the latter part, middle of 1993, 1992, 1993. And so the Department of Justice sent 2 young attorneys out from Washington, D.C. to just determine whether or not there was actually been discriminatory practices. And so they determined when they were looking at investigating Black Pipe State Bank that there had been discriminatory lending practices based on the fact that Black Pipe State Bank would not make secured loans to Native Americans. They did unsecured but not secured, because on a secured basis, if you had to use the collateral and you had to sort of repossess that, you ended up in the tribal court system. And they chose not to do that. And so that discovery led to the fact that they were basically discriminating against them on doing secured loans. So based on those findings, the DOJ filed a lawsuit against Black Pipe State Bank in 1993. And we ultimately had started working with the DOJ and with Black Pipe State Bank to acquire the institution in 1994. And so we helped negotiate what was called a Victims Relief Fund. And that ended up being a sum of about $125,000 that was eventually settled upon and agreed to be paid back through several different individual borrowers who had been denied credit on a secured basis. That was all through the Black Pipe State Bank DOJ settlement in 1993.
Mm-hmm. And Marty, in our discussion earlier, you had mentioned that the purpose of the banking system, and especially in this particular area, you had mentioned that the bank's goal or the bank's role would be to protect the individual's money. And could you talk to us a little bit about that?
Right. Well, I mean, ultimately, that is our job, is to provide a safe place for people to keep their money, and then also to provide access when they need it. And one of the challenges that all banks face, and certainly banks that have multiple locations, as we do, and we're talking mostly about Rapid City, Rushville, Martin, and the mobile bank, this part of this little corner of our footprint, is if somebody comes in the door, usually we know our customer. If they're, for example, in Rapid City, we know all of our Rapid City customers. Martin knows all their Martin customers, so forth and so on. But sometimes we get a customer who usually will go to Martin or usually go to Rushville or something, but we don't know them. We don't know them yet because maybe we only have seen them once or twice. And so the process of identifying and making sure that you are who you say you are sometimes is an awkward conversation, honestly, because somebody goes, hey, I've been a customer of the bank for 30 years, and why are you asking me these questions? You should know who I am. But our job is to keep people's money safe. And so regardless of if you're showing up in our Lincoln location or Rapid City or Hay Springs or Chadron or wherever, we just want to make sure that we're only releasing money to somebody who's entitled to have the money. And again, that's the job of the bank, is to protect people's belongings, protect their assets, in this case cash.
Those can be some awkward conversations, I'm
They
sure.
can, because people are very loyal, they're loyal customers, and they might not think about it for just a second. Like, yes, I know that you've been a customer for 30 years, and that's amazing. And so thank you so much for that, but I don't recognize your face. And a lot of times we'll even just call down to one of the branches too and say, you know, so-and-so is here and this is what they're asking to do. Is that okay? And they'll say, yep, that's okay. And we're expecting them. A lot of times too, we'll just, if we have a customer who's, say, not from Rapid City, but is coming to town to do some shopping or go to the doctor or whatever, and also needs to do some banking business, their primary branch, those staff will call us and say, hey, you know, so-and-so is going to be coming to town today, and this is the services that they need, and just to give us a heads up to help. It's really all about customer service too, like from our standpoint, but it's first and foremost is making sure that people's money is safe.
Sure, and earlier you mentioned that you're on Badlands Express 3. You've had 3 vehicles that you've gone through, and you have a new driver or a recently?
Well, Angie Witt is our driver today, and she's been a driver, I want to say, for about 10 years.
I think so.
At least that long. And so this would be her second vehicle. Tom Thomas worked for us for many, many, many years and was the original driver, and he retired a few years ago. But yeah, Badlands Express 3 is on the road, and it's a gorgeous vehicle. We're pretty proud of how it looks. And
I bet you Angie's pretty popular down in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation.
she is. She's established great long-term relationships with customers, and people are glad to see her. And she's a great person.
So is this program going to continue then, or is this something we're going to be celebrating another 20 years of the 40th anniversary then? It's a continued program then?
I defer to those who thrive on technology, but that seems to sort of raise the question whether or not the mobile branch has a longer life than the next 5 to 10 years, simply because technology can quickly replace it. Everybody's got a mobile phone, a smartphone, and digital channels certainly seem to be utilized by a lot of people anymore. So if there's a need, we'll continue to explore that. But most definitely, it works today, and we know it has a life for another 5 years or longer. So
yeah, you bring up a good point with the technology but then again, a lot of Native American families, a lot of Native American tribal members, they love having cash in hand. I think for the first half of my life, my bank was underneath my mattress there, so it wasn't.
It's a great point, and I sometimes I joke. I said until somebody's smartphone can start spitting out 20s. You know, we really do need to have, whether it's an ATM or the mobile bank or some other, you know, at a retail store, people getting cash back. People like to have cash, and that's important. And the other thing too, with technology, as much as it's permeated everywhere, the digital divide is real, and it's particularly real in our rural areas. And smartphones are great, computers are great, but they don't work equally well for everybody.
True.
And we encounter that not only on the reservation, but also in some of our really rural farm communities in other parts of Nebraska, for example, where it's just not as easy or fast or even available to access your banking online.
That's true. The internet service is kind of sketchy in some places. I was driving through middle of South Dakota, and I saw a young man standing up on top of his tractor and trying to get service. So it was pretty interesting. But we're going to take a break. When we get back, we'll learn a little bit more about Security First Bank. We'll be back after a word from our sponsors.
I got a crick in my neck, limp in my step, cramping in my muscles every time I try to flex. I don't know what I'm scared of. Very sad when all that I could do was remember you. You know I usually say no, but if you throw me love, I'll throw you some more.
Youth and Family Services Prenatal to 5 Head Start program is enrolling now. This is a free preschool program for children ages 3 to 5 and a home visiting program for children prenatal to age 3. Both programs offer family support opportunities. If you are pregnant or have a child 5 years old or younger, call today to inquire about this free family program designed to enhance children's physical, social, emotional, and intellectual development. Give your child a head start with Head Start. Call today.
When discrimination happens in our community, and it does happen,
then it's time to stand up and speak out to make it stop.
Discrimination hurts and excludes.
We can be better than that.
People of Black Hills have a connection to each other, and none of us deserve discrimination.
The Rapid City Human Relations Commission can help with discrimination issues in housing, employment, and public accommodations. And each of us, when we see it or hear it, can do our part to end discrimination.
You have a responsibility to stand up and speak out.
Hi, welcome back to Oyate Today. Once again, our guest tonight is Greg Hunter and Marnie Herrman, both of Security First Bank. Thank you both for being here tonight. Really appreciate the discussion. Mr. Hunter, you were mentioning some of the consequences or the unintended consequences of bringing the mobile bank into Pine Ridge and the Pine Ridge area. So what were some of those unintended consequences for, let's say, Rushville?
Well, I think typical of what is somewhat similar today is that a lot of the Native Americans were pretty much, they were cash users. And so when you realize that for years and years, Stockman's National Bank was the primary bank for Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, those customers would frequent Rushville simply to have access to their bank. So when we decided to roll the bank out in 1998, some of the unintended consequences was the fact that those merchants who relied upon that business, that model changed and became more obvious to them that they thought we were driving business away from Rushville by taking the mobile branch to Pine Ridge. The reality of that was simply that we figured it was a better way to serve a larger customer base. And so the unintended consequences was the fact that there was less business opportunities in Rushville, and there was more for the merchants and the individuals on the reservation.
So the money was staying on the reservation.
That is correct.
Being used at reservation businesses.
Yes.
Ah, I see. And so, Marnie, has there been any, as far as the investigation that was done in the early 90s, has there been any kind of discrepancies lately? Is there any, has the model changed then with these border towns around Pine Ridge and the reservations in South Dakota then? Has banking improved, I guess?
I think that there have been improvements. Technology has been a big player in that, as far as people just being able to, check balances and just have a better idea of where their money is. There are a number of ATMs now that are deployed all across the reservation, and that's been the case for, 20 years or more, but there are more today, I think, maybe than there ever have been. And then I know that Lakota Federal Credit Union also offers some banking services in Kyle, and they may do some things mobilely as well. I'm not entirely clear about what they have, but with respect to the border towns, you know, I'm not sure that. I think things are better just overall. There's more transparency, I think, in banking overall about how people are treated, the type of access that they have to the services that they need and should have, and you know, we just try to make good, sound business decisions and also act as kind of a financial guide for people as well. Just say, you know, have you considered this? Have you considered that? So that they get more use out of the dollars that they do have.
And so, Mr. Hunter, the mobile banking system is great for Pine Ridge. Great program, great system. Why would a bank, brick and mortar bank, not be established in say Pine Ridge or one of the communities down there? What's the benefit of just having and providing the mobile banking system then?
Well, I think it was a recognition of really with the type of business that primarily was needed or being used in Pine Ridge. There was really very little opportunity to do a commercial line of business. So on the retail side, delivering what was really needed, which we thought was simply access to cash, they're having their accounts with us, making those more readily available was a more predominant effort, because then we could simply take it to them. Because having a single fixture, a brick and mortar bank in Pine Ridge, for example, still required families to drive clear from Wombly and Kyle just to get to Pine Ridge. So all you really did was move a brick and mortar from Rushville, which is 25 miles south, to Pine Ridge. Mm-hmm. It just seemed to us that the mobile branch was was a better utility to provide that type of service.
And it does. If you're going to 4 communities, then you're really getting out there into these communities and stuff, especially in those rural areas.
Yes.
Yeah. And so, Marnie, as Director of Marketing for Security, what's the next step for? What are you working on with the reservations now?
Well, we have great relationships with a lot of the schools, and one of the things that we're slowly working on is creating debit cards for different schools that have their own school mascot or school logo on them. We've been able to do that in a lot of our small Nebraska communities, and people really like having their school logo on their debit card, and there's a lot of school pride out there.
That's
so
going to be
we're
awesome.
working on that.
That's going to be awesome. I want to thank our guests tonight. I want to thank our producers, our sponsors, and I want to thank you for making Oyate Today a part of your night. You've been watching Oyate Today, brought to you by Regional Health.